everybody. Welcome to our professional development opportunity on incorporating vocabulary instruction into the classroom. So this is another big need that we have established within our school district, where we've talked about how we are so focused around getting students to be able to comprehend a reading, but we kind of diminish the need for vocabulary instruction still, because we kind of either assume that students just know the words already, or we just skim over it because we're like, well, let's get the overall reading done first. But we're missing such an essential piece to reading comprehension when we're skipping over vocabulary. So again, this is another interdisciplinary concept. It's another thing that is used throughout all different classes: history, science, math, art, Spanish, English, of course. Every single content that we have in the school, students need that vocabulary knowledge and that vocabulary base in order to be successful. So this is our first professional development on vocabulary. It's introducing the importance behind vocabulary instruction and the background, as well as tips and strategies on how to effectively implement vocabulary within our lessons. So this is, again, another one of our tips and strategies for success in the 2023-2024 school year. To talk about the formatting of this a little bit, this recording is being done through a Zoom session, and it is currently Thanksgiving break. And so I did not invite anybody to actually be here in person for the seminar live with me, because I know we're all enjoying some well-needed time off with our families and we are enjoying this break. However, how this is going to be sent out to people: you are getting emailed this video. You are also getting emailed this PowerPoint presentation that I am running through, and then you'll be emailed all of the links that are a part of this presentation. So the videos, the readings, the exit slip, anything linked into this video is being sent to your email. So as we go through and as you hear things happening, please feel free to check the links within the email and click them. You can pause me if you need to, click into the links so that you are keeping pace with what we are talking about, okay? So intentional vocabulary instruction. First of all, let's talk about the English language a little bit and why our vocabulary can be so confusing, not just for high school students, but for students across the board, K through 12. I've never thought about this one. This first image really made me laugh. Every C in Pacific Ocean is pronounced differently. You have Pacific, so ocean. I never thought about that. I'm like, oh man, that must make learning English really challenging. This one is funny. English is difficult. It can be understood through tough, thorough thought, though. Love that one. I'm going to stop my video because it's over this next one, but I'll read some of these. English is hard. The bandage was wound around the wound. The farm was used to produce produce. The dump was so full that it had to refuse. We must polish the Polish furniture. He could lead if he would get the lead out. The soldier decided to desert his dessert in the desert. Since there's no time like the present, he thought it was time to present the present. A bass was painted on the head of the bass drum. When shot at, the dove dove into the bushes. I did not object to the object. The insurance was invalid for the invalid. There was a row among the oarsmen about how to row. They were too close to the door to close it. Okay, so complicated, huh? I love this video. This video makes me laugh every time. So I am going to show you this really briefly, and then we'll get into the why behind vocabulary, okay? So this is a TikTok one.
So if this word is wine, this word would be maga.
It'd be magazine.
Magazine. You don't see how that's all right. You know, I'll give you another one, okay? All right. So if this is magazine, this word would be porcupine. Porcupine. You don't. You're just not getting it. It's okay. It's okay. I'll do another one for you. All right. So you know this word?
River.
River. Yes. Okay. Good. So you are getting the hang of it. So if that's river, then this right here would be
Diver.
No, it's diver. You don't.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. Let me give you one more, okay?
Okay.
All right. So first word is thread.
Thread, yeah.
Which means this word right here would be
red.
Well, it depends.
I think that sums up English perfectly. Every time I see videos like that, it makes me laugh, especially as an English teacher. I'm like, oh, it's hilarious. Because honestly, I have at times felt like that student, and I've also felt like that teacher where we're going through things with them, especially when it comes to vocabulary. And it's like, see, doesn't this make sense? And they're looking at us like blank eyes glossed over, like, yeah, okay. English is hard. It's not an easy language. And I have talked to ELL students about that, and they're like, this is so challenging to learn. It takes a lot of skilled effort, and that's why we need way more intentional effort on our end as well. So English is challenging. This is why it's essential for us as educators to provide students with intentional vocabulary instruction so they can learn and apply new words and they can gain deeper understanding of topics. The more intentional we can be, the more successful they're going to be with English vocabulary. And we know vocabulary skills lead to comprehension. So this is an essential piece because as we've talked about this year, comprehension is our big overarching goal for our students, and they need this first piece to be able to be successful. So our goals and vision. Our big goal of this is being able to understand the purpose of vocabulary instruction. So what is our why? Why are we doing this? Why are we making this a goal? Why is it important for our students? Also being able to implement effective vocabulary instruction into our classes. What we have learned is that rote memorization does not work. If we're just drilling students with words and definitions and hoping that they memorize them, that's not going to lead to longevity. It's not going to help students be able to maintain that knowledge over time. We need to be able to break down these words and really help them gain a deeper understanding of them. Also being able to utilize tools and resources to help students learn new vocabulary that's not going to be based around memorization, where they're actually embedding these into their learning. So our big goal, summing those three up, the goal is to help students become confident in identifying words and gain a deeper background knowledge through the vocabulary instruction we provide. That's our big goal. So what should we know about vocabulary? Having mastered phonemic awareness and phonics is essential to being able to identify vocabulary words. Students need to be able to see how those sounds form together in order to figure out how words are formed. And like we said, it's, the rules like magazine versus magazine, okay? Trying to figure out the sounds and how they're laid out and being able to just see a word and recognize it. So sight recognition, that's a core foundational piece. And when students miss that, they really have a hard time with vocabulary. So bridging the gaps for students who seem to struggle with pronunciation, maybe look into where did they miss some phonics and phonemic awareness and how can I help fill those gaps for my whole class first. But then vocabulary skills do lead to fluency, and fluency is not speed of reading. We talk about this a lot. It is not just reading fast, but it is reading with intonation. It's reading with excitement and like reading with a flow of things, but also then knowing what we're reading as we read through it. So it's not just reading word for word as quickly as possible. It's adding some dimension into our reading. And then it leads to comprehension, which is so important. When they know the vocabulary, they can understand what they're reading. There are 3 tiers to vocabulary words. Tier 1 includes common words, so just everyday words that students should know. Again, those are kind of your sight recognition words that we want them to be able to pick out. Tier 2 is the academic vocabulary that's used across contexts and disciplines. So it's vocabulary words that they will hear in an English class and a science class. It's still academic, they're bigger level words, but they're not just going to hear them in one area. Tier 3 is the most complex type of word. That's the word that they're going to hear in a discipline specific. So a science class, when you're talking about organisms, and it's the words that like microorganisms, those are the words that are just disciplinary specific. So you're really going to see them in that one discipline. So why is vocabulary a top priority? I love this video. It's called Do Not Read This. It is all about like where we use vocabulary, and it does it in a little bit of a different method because this Room to Read organization decided they really wanted to push a movement on like the importance of being able to read words, but I kind of like just the overarching message. So we're going to watch this really briefly and then we'll get more into it. Okay, so I'm gonna stop it here, you guys, because the rest of this is talking about the movement itself and what we need to do to help that 1 in 7 who cannot read, which is super, super important. And if you want to watch the rest of it and actually look into that room to read or that read to change rooms, I think it's, yeah, rooms to read. Let me double check that again. Yes, it comes from room to read. You can look into the organization a little bit and like where to go to actually be a part of that change, which is a really great idea. But my whole message behind that is just you think about all the things we read every day, like the video mentioned, maps, street signs, Google searches, text messages, labels on medications. If we didn't have that foundational vocabulary knowledge of how words work, everything we look at would just be a blank canvas, and it would be a lot harder to navigate through our lives without being able to read. And that's again where that phonics comes in, because we need to be able to figure out the pronunciations, the vocabulary then, and knowing these background of what these things are. And then beyond that, comprehension and understanding what we're seeing on a daily basis. All of that goes into it. So important. Reading is a part of everyday life, and vocabulary is a core component of reading. Vocabulary is essential to learning to read and write, and it's critical, like I said, for reading comprehension. And it provides students with essential background knowledge to help them make connections to what they're reading. That is why it's a top priority for us. So, how can we support vocabulary in the classroom then as educators? We first need to have a vocabulary development goal in mind. Okay, what do we want our students to gain from our vocabulary instruction? When we teach new words to students, what level of depth are we planning on taking them to? Okay, my one recommendation is don't try to just teach a set number of words. We're not going for like, I want them to learn 20 words this week. The focus point should be breaking words down and providing the depth within the meanings, helping them make the connections between the words and how they relate to other concepts in life. So a lot of that is done through like drawings of them, through connection seeking, like writing down, okay, what does this word relate to for you? Synonyms and antonyms, like looking into more detail behind the words rather than just a set number of words, because then we get more towards rote memorization, and we don't want to do that. We want to get to the deeper connections. Also, teaching students word parts like words like on or dis and what those mean, so that when they see that, come up with a word like disorganized versus disproportioned. Okay, then they at least have that knowledge, so then they can start opening the door to other new word opportunities. Great idea. Educators should provide background knowledge and help students make connections to the words. Okay, so giving them the deeper context, again, background knowledge, always essential. The classroom needs to be word rich and authentic. So surround students with words on the wall. Use those strategies that we're going to be talking about in the next few slides. Indirectly engage students in conversations using rich language. All of those can be really important to help our students. So I have a choice reading for you, and I am going to keep this as brief as possible because we're down to only 15 minutes left already, and I don't want this to take up too much time. But I do want you to skim through one of these articles, and I am going to do the same thing. You don't have to do both. You are choosing which one you're more interested in. They're about the same length. One comes from Cult of Pedagogy. The other one comes from Read Naturally. So the first article from Cult of Pedagogy is 8 Ways to Grow Students' Vocabulary. The one from Read Naturally is the importance of vocabulary development. I want you to skim through one of these, and I'm going to do it with you on my end. And then after reading for 5 minutes, of course, we're not going to be able to share because we're doing this through Zoom, so a little bit different. But if we were in person, we would be sharing. Instead, I just want you in the reflection, when we reflect on this, to think about what are you currently doing to support vocabulary in your classroom, and what would be beneficial for you to try or add based on the reading or just from other people you've heard. The more ideas you share now today, especially in the reflection, the more I can add to our next vocabulary seminar and start sharing out with other staff members. Okay, so I'm going to give you just a few minutes. I'm going to go and skim through one of these as well. And once I'm done, we'll come back together. When you hear me start talking, you can jump back in. If you need to pause me, go ahead, totally fine. So you can finish your reading and then jump back in from the next slide, okay? Okay, I'm going to come back together with everybody. And if you need to pause me so you can finish your reading, absolutely, please do that. I'm actually going to go through a little overview of what both of these readings shared, but they provide so many great vocabulary tools. And I'm actually in my next kind of piece of this, I'm going to go through some of those tools, and some of them are reiterated from these readings. And some of them are things we've already been using at Chisago Lake. So I'm really excited to share them with you guys. But the choice reading recaps. So that cult of pedagogy, the 8 ways to grow students' vocabulary, it really talked about vocabulary spanning in all disciplines. As we know, it's not just an English thing. Okay, students need to have a deep foundational knowledge of vocabulary throughout every content class that they're in. But word knowledge is key for comprehension. I'm going to keep reiterating that because that is just truth. It's so important. You need to have that background vocabulary knowledge in order to comprehend a reading. Some strategies that this one included was informal conversations. So just talking to students, but using rich vocabulary, and especially using the words you're trying to teach them into that conversation. It's a great idea just to start embedding it authentically. Using stuff like tip charts, and we use a form of a tip chart at Chisago currently that I'm going to show you all. But tip charts, it's term information picture, having students write down words, writing essential information about them, and drawing a picture just to help embed it a little bit deeper than just memorizing. Having students collaborate to teach each other words, okay? Have them pick words, self-select, and then share them with each other, share the ideas. Using online tools, always a good idea. So that specific strategy in there that I liked and I wanted to highlight was the SNAP strategy, where students will see or say the word. So they're going to like phrase it, they're going to use it, just pull it out and put it somewhere. And then they can find a category that the word would fit in. Okay, so what kind of word types is this similar to? The category could be like a verb, noun, adjective. It could be even deeper than that. Maybe the categories are like flowers versus trees. You know, whatever category you want to use for the types of words you're learning, acting on the word. So then they're going to use that word in a conversation, maybe with a peer, or maybe they're going to say a sentence out loud to the full class and then produce an application for the word. So what's an example of where they would use that word in real life? Okay, so applying it authentically into their real lives. It's really important. The second article was the importance of vocabulary development, and that was from Read Naturally. This one talks about words opening up possibilities. It also talks about gaps in vocabulary and the causes of it. Some of that is home experiences. Some is just limited experience outside of the home. Okay, kids who aren't able to get out much and don't talk to people or don't see different things. Not having a big exposure to books, maybe because their family financially can't afford it, and maybe because they're just not interested. They're resistant to reading. And so that would then lead to a lack of independent reading. Those can all cause vocabulary gaps. So to teach vocabulary, it's important to use indirect methods mixed with intentional strategies. The indirect would be engaging students in those conversations using rich vocabulary, where the intentional strategies are then stuff like the tip chart, the snap charts, where you're really pulling out things and trying to help students learn them. This talks about using student-friendly definitions, using context clues, sketching words, so again, pictures of the words, and even word mapping. Okay, so again, links pages, tip charts, all of those are great. And then just analyzing word parts. I talked about that in the last couple of slides, teaching them words like on, dis. Okay, what are these word parts and what do those mean and how can they help us open the door to more words? Okay, so next slide then, just the learning strategies. Let's go through some of these intentional tools that we can use. As I always say, gamifying. We love games. Using Quizlet Live, Kahoot, Gimkit. Those are all great ways to engage students with vocabulary and help them remember them to a deeper extent. Yes, we do want to avoid rote memorization, and sometimes these games can encourage them. But if you are pairing these games with other intentional strategies, the game alone should not be the only strategy you're using. It shouldn't be, here are the words, now memorize them. The game is adding on top of all of this learning they've already done. So it's making it engaging and helping them really analyze the word parts after already doing some deep, extensive learning. Annotating and self-selection. Have students use sticky notes during a reading and self-select words that they maybe aren't sure of or they just maybe find interesting. Have them write these down on a sticky note and then save space for the end of class to have students research any of the words they found, and then they get to share them with each other. So we maybe did a reading for, 40 minutes today in class. Then as an exit slip, I'm going to say, okay, so you guys should have sticky noted some interesting words. Now I want you to take 2 minutes to just research the word. What is it? What does it mean? And now let's share these out with each other. Just really briefly, an awesome quick exit slip activity that students could use. Any types of annotation is great with vocabulary. Using context. Okay, so this is where they're writing down these words and how they can relate to their lives. And again, sharing them out loud with peers. But what are the applications? What are the real world things where they can use these words? Word mapping. Okay, so in our district currently, especially 9th and 10th grade, math and English. So our RTI courses use these. These are called links pages. It is just like a tip chart. It's where students connect new terminology, and they kind of have this mind map to help them expand their vocabulary. This has been emailed to all staff, and I would highly encourage its use. It's really fantastic. So what a links page looks like, I have room for 12. Oh, I actually have room for 24 words. You don't want to teach 24 words. But usually when I teach new words, I teach anywhere between like 8 and 12, and I span those for usually a couple of weeks, but depends on what you're teaching. But students will write the word here. They can put reminding words, a definition. And if you want to make this, make a copy of this page and change this to applications. They can figure out how to apply this, maybe write a sentence with this word in it. It's a great idea too. And then they draw a picture of the word. I love using these sheets in my English courses. I know other teachers have, but this is currently what we use as our version of a tip chart to help students start applying these words. And then throughout the unit of the word we're learning or words, we keep these charts with us so that they can easily look back and have a little map of what they should already know. It's a great idea. My other notes, be intentional about teaching synonyms and antonyms. Give students some context behind that. What is this similar to? What is it different from? Don't teach too many new words. That gets to be overwhelming and way too much. 10 to 12 a week for high school students is plenty. I would say more than enough. Also, be sure the words are needed to understand the context of the reading. Don't just pick out a bunch of words because you can. I actually fell into that my first year of teaching. I taught students like 20 new words a week, and half of them were not essential to the reading, but they were big words. So I figured I should teach them. It became too much, and students didn't end up remembering any of the words. So make sure the words you're picking have to do with the context of the reading and are going to be important for them to know. Also, try to balance tier 1, 2, and 3 words with the heaviest emphasis on tier 2. Remember, tier 2 words are the ones that span across multiple disciplines, but they're still academic words that students probably don't have much awareness of. So those would be really important to try to add in. Okay, so I'm just going to show you guys Quizlet Live as a vocabulary extension tool. Again, this should not be the only tool, but it's something I've used in my classes after going through links pages with students after we've worked with words for weeks. They can play a classic live game where they're then going through vocabulary with the definitions. Okay, you can see they learned 12 words in this unit. What I would usually do after creating this in Quizlet Live is click Classic Live. I would let students team up. Music, they can join, and then they get paired up with people and they get into a little vocab competition. It's so much fun for students to be able to do that and just gamifying grammar or gamifying vocabulary. It makes it more engaging and way cooler for them. So moving forward, so you guys know where we are at as a district. The district is actually ordering copies of a book called Vocabulary for Success. And these are books that are going to be specifically supplied to English 9 and English 10 teachers. They are not necessary for you to use, okay? I'm just going to tell you that. But these are really cool to help students start learning how to pick out vocabulary words and start figuring out the context of them without having a teacher supplying definitions. So they're learning to identify vocabulary on their own through these. It's a really great intervention strategy for English classes. And that's why we're ordering the Vocabulary 9 and the Vocabulary 10 book and giving them to English 9 and 10 teachers, because this is a great tool that we are hoping to start implementing within the next couple of years here. But we want to figure out a positive way to do this. So there is going to be additional training once these materials are in on how these books can be used, how they'll be useful, and what their overall purpose is. My big emphasis here, this is not meant to become an extra task for English 9 and English 10 teachers. I'm not saying, here's a book I bought you, start using it right now. That's stressful and nobody likes that. There will be a training that's going to take place, and it's going to take place of your prep duty for a day. So instead of sitting in structured study for a day, you're going to be just meeting with me really briefly to talk about these books. Instead of sitting at the desk duty, you'll come meet with me briefly. So I'm going to meet with each individuals during one of their prep duties about this book, and then an administrator will take your duty for that day. So it's not taking away any of your time that wouldn't already be taken from you. The other thing is the materials are going to be embedded into the current curriculum. It's not going to be something extra. So I know you guys all have busy schedules in your classes. Things are mapped out, and it's like, I need to hit this at this time. This is not going to be like, hey, entire new unit, go ahead, figure out how to add this in. It's going to be embedded, and we're going to make it a smooth process. So we're ordering them. I want you to know that. Please don't be stressed out about feeling like these need to be used right now. It is not meant to be extra for you. I'm also going to encourage staff to try one of the vocabulary tools we discussed today. It could be the links page. It could be adding a gamified grammar lesson, using self-selection and having students teach each other. Just try one new tool because it could make a difference for your students. Okay. The exit ticket is linked to you, so please fill this out. It's just a reflection. I want to know what you learned through this, if you learned new ideas or learned some new information, or if this was all a refresh for you, please tell me that. Which part of the session did you find most valuable? Okay, what was the most essential for you in your learning? Which strategies from the session have you used previously, or what would you be interested in trying, especially after those readings? What might you be interested in? Are there any strategies that you currently use that we didn't cover? Because we always want to learn more on our end too. And then English 9 and 10 teachers only for these last two. Would you be interested in using vocabulary for success in your classroom? If you answered no for question 4, tell me what your concerns are, because we really want to try to ease those concerns, okay? And here are the references from the session for today. I am going to stop sharing my screen, but as always, you guys, please let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and let me know how I can help you moving forward in vocabulary instruction. Enjoy the rest of your break, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys all soon. Thanks. Bye.